I don't know.
Hey Ed, how are you? Yeah, pretty good. Can you get by?
Oh, we're doing a picture. My stuff's moving.
It's
Picture
time.
time.
I know everyone's very excited about that.
It's my favorite time of the year.
Oh, Ron, we've got to find some better things for you.
I mean, planning commission and picture night?
Yeah, how much better
It's
can
a
you
2-for-1 night.
I'll tell you.
Planning commissioners have to have training every year. How many hours and
You have to have 4 hours of training per calendar year.
per calendar year?
Yeah. So, and there's a lot of things that can qualify for that. There's, like the one you did the other day with floodplain. Staff training of
The
planning
staff training
commission.
does count.
That does count. So you can get it all in one seminar if you go to a 4-hour seminar, but that's what the state law requirement is 4 hours in a calendar year for each planning commissioner.
Okay. I wanted to make sure we all understood that that's a state requirement.
Yes,
For
it
planning
is. It's in a
commission.
Tennessee code
And,
annotated, actually.
The one I did this week, I have a certificate here of training that I will turn in to Mark. So if you do go to any training, be sure and get some kind of certification letter of some kind so you can give to Mark so he knows and can verify that.
The second, the one in Oak Ridge is which day?
It's the October the 1st and 6 to 8.
No, October 1st, okay.
October the 1st, 6 to 8. TDEC Training Center, which is at 761 Emory Valley Road. Moving on to anybody else have any questions or comments? Then we'll move on to the approval of the August 15, 2013 minutes. Do we have any changes? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
And I'll abstain since I was absent.
Item number 3, discussion and public hearing on a request for access to Evans Road parcel 003, tax map 152, Gary Forrester applicant.
This item involves a piece of property off of Evans Road. You can see there, it's just to the west of the farm at Willow Creek. Mr. Forrester is subdividing his 30-acre parcel into 5-acre and greater estate lots, and there's not going to be any new public improvements. It's basically just real similar to what was done on Allen Kirby Road a couple of years ago or a year ago. But he is proposing an access for this subdivision, and the access is a little over 200 feet to the west of the existing access to his home, which you see there on tract 1. The reason this is before you is that in the driveways and other access ways ordinance, access onto a street that's classified as a collector or arterial has to go through the planning commission. They make a recommendation to the board of mayor and aldermen. This road is classified as a major collector, so that's why this is before you. The access that they're proposing for this subdivision is it lines up with the most prominent access that's on the north side of Evans Road. You can kind of see that there. There is a smaller driveway just to the east of the access that they're lining up with, but the one that they're lining up with is the most prominent access. I've had the engineering staff to go out and look at the piece of property, to look at the proposed access. Let me get back to this aerial image. And the sight distance in each direction is greater than 400 feet. All that's required is 200 feet for this type of road. So it greatly exceeds, the requirement in that regard. They are going to have a variance to the access control ordinance because of the smaller driveway that is to the east of where they're proposing to access. This one here. That one. Because that's well within the 200-foot distance separation that's required on a collector street. So even though they're greater than 200 feet away from any driveway on the south side of Evans, they're about 20 feet from that existing access on the north side. So the staff recommends approval of this proposed access and the variance needed from the 200-foot distance requirement. I think Richard LeMay is here if you have any questions on what is being requested.
Yes, I'm Richard LeMay. I'm here representing the Foresters this evening, and I'll be glad to answer any questions you have.
Does anybody have any questions for Richard?
Yeah, I have a question.
Okay.
Since the driveway is already installed and gated, is it not
Not this one, no, sir.
going to the Forester property,
Pardon me?
going into Evans Road on the south side?
That's over here. Yeah, no, this particular driveway has not been constructed, no.
Well, there's one out there that's constructed that runs into that property, into where they're developing.
that
Their
the house?
their
That's the
house, there's an
driveway.
existing driveway.
Yeah, that's the
And
driveway.
then there's an opening in the wooden fence that's there on this piece, but to my knowledge, I haven't been out there in a couple of weeks, but to my knowledge, there's no driveway built where we're proposing this
The
road.
gated driveway is where the concrete is right here.
Right, it's up there at their house.
Yeah.
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 It's pretty close to where this is.
Yeah, that's right here.
Yes, sir, it's on up, yeah, there's where the gate is now.
The proposed
Goes into their
access
existing
would
residence.
be
Yeah, okay. But
Here.
that's,
Yeah.
So,
No, as far as I know, they've not, I've been surprised before, but, like I say, I hadn't been there in
well,
a couple
I mean,
weeks.
you go by there and it looked like that was the driveway that
Yeah,
originally
I
went down
understand.
there, and all of a sudden it's
Right.
part of the,
Yeah.
been developed as part of the development, which is okay. But, and this road right across the street from it, it's hardly,
It's a gravel drive that's
It's-
directly
yeah.
around.
well grown over. It's not even.
Correct. And that'll, I want to make some comments once, I want you to vote first, but then I have some comments that I'd like to make.
Okay.
So that,
We may want to hear his comments.
yes. Is it only one house there that opposite road, opposite driveway access?
Yes, ma'am. It serves one house, and then that little smaller drive that Mark referenced is another small drive that's on a panhandle lot that goes back to one other house back
house
there.
here, here, and here.
House and some other stuff.
The most prominent driveway on the north side of Evans is the one that they're proposing to line up with.
Okay.
The other one's more narrow.
I guess what it appears, what I'm hearing tonight is that their original proposal, which was to slide it off to the west a little bit, has been withdrawn. Is that
Yes, that's
fair
my
to say, Richard?
understanding.
Correct.
So you're good with lining it up across the street? Okay, I
That's
mean, I think
correct.
it's a no-brainer. I think that's the best spot to line it up.
Yeah, that's,
Either which way, they're going to need a variance one direction or the other, and they shouldn't be penalized because there's those two single driveways that are so tight, which we normally wouldn't allow today.
Any other questions or comments? Do I have a motion?
Do we need to do this as two separate motions or not?
With a variance.
yeah, you probably should. Yeah.
We need to do the variance first? Need to do the variance
Yeah,
first before we
that's-
can approve it,
that's
right?
fine. Yeah.
I'll offer a motion with the variance for the, I'm trying to word it. Variance needed from the 200-foot distance requirement.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And our second motion, or the number two motion on this?
I'll move for approval.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
If I could, we've been through this process several times. As you know, you're not reviewing the subdivision. This is what's called an exempt subdivision as approved by the state of Tennessee. I guess my question, and we've gone through this process several times over the years. My question is, from a legal standpoint, if we were, I think we have a right to go record the subdivision plat, irrespective of these driveway access points. I don't know that. I'm telling you my theory, and I'm not an attorney. But it appears to me that this plat could have been recorded, and then whoever purchases these lots could come back and argue their stance on whether or not they can have a driveway because they have a recorded plat. That's an issue I think that needs to be resolved. We've always acquiesced and done it this way. My clients this time are not particularly pleased with that, but we're doing it this way, and I told them I would make these comments to you all tonight. If the town attorney or someone could look into it, I think it really needs to be resolved, because theoretically, we really shouldn't have to be here. Whoever purchases the lot that requires a driveway should be here, and then you all have to deal with that lot as granting access or not granting access. But if we could bear that in mind and get an answer to it, I would certainly appreciate it.
Richard, my thought from a marketing standpoint, wouldn't it be tough to try to sell one of these lots knowing that that homeowner may or may not be eligible for a driveway access? I know the folks that I deal with would have quite a bit of problem buying something subject to something that a governing body may or may not.
That's the risk they would run, and I don't disagree with that.
Right. I mean, I agree with that. I'm actually
Yeah.
pretty familiar with the TCA,
Right.
this particular code, and I've actually spent some time with the town attorney, Tom Hale, not on this
Yeah.
project, but over the
Well,
years on
different,
different
yeah.
things that has to do with what's exempt and what's not exempt.
I know the local theory, or one of the theories, has been forever that if you're extending utilities to a piece of property, then it's a subdivision that has to come here. Well, we're not there. We're not extending any utilities. So I mean, it's an interesting question.
Even that is
Well-
is ambiguous. The
It
whole
is-
utility
it
part.
is.
because
That's
Are we
my-
talking what was called primary or secondary?
Yeah, that's my whole point.
And so, and that's when you get into some real issues about what really is extending. If somebody's running a water line to their house,
Right,
is that extending utilities? To me, it's not. That's considered secondary.
yeah,
Versus the primary would be is if you ran a main water line or you ran vaults and primary electric,
right.
then you're definitely. But so there is some ambiguity in that whole TCA section.
I've always talked my clients into acquiescing and doing what's right from a time standpoint. Plus, I think really it probably is the right thing to do. But from a legal standpoint, I'd really like to know if I'm advising them properly of whether or not they have to do that.
Well, I'm not a lawyer, but I think it makes sense also if you're gonna show the access easement to the lots in the rear in this tract, in this subdivision. You know,
Well,
do a subdivision without establishing that access easement doesn't seem to be logical either. I don't know what's within the law.
Well, you
but-
definitely
Yeah.
don't want to landlock.
again,
you
yeah.
can't
You
landlock.
Can't landlock.
Even the
Can't
TCA doesn't allow you to landlock.
Exactly.
something.
They've got to have 25 feet.
So
of
by
road frontage.
definition,
Right.
where that
Right.
easement is gonna
Well,
define where that is in it, Richard.
Theoretically, under state law, if each one of them had 25 feet of frontage on a public road, they could build their own driveway. That, you know,
Yeah, if they have that. We've
Right.
seen the ones with the little flag.
right, that's what I'm talking
Right.
about. That's,
To me, this looks like a win-win for everybody to do it this way.
oh, I don't, I'm
To your
finished.
point, I'm, not, let the lawyers look.
I just want somebody to look into it if they can, because I'm sure somebody will be back, may not be me, but somebody will be back with the same situation.
Mark?
Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Mark, would you explain, we have a couple of new members on the planning commission that we may not have talked about these 5-acre lots in the state. Could you just give a little brief idea that this is a state?
Yeah, if you're creating lots that are greater than 5 acres and you're not extending any new public improvements, roads or public utilities, then that is exempt under Tennessee state law from the subdivision review process. The only reason he was here was to establish a centralized access point onto Evans Road so that he could market that property. There's 30 acres. It's going to be roughly 30 acres is going to be coming to that access point. And that's why he's before the body, before you all, because we want to review requests that come before the town for access onto these more major roads so that they're properly thought through, properly coordinated with not only what's out there now, but what do we anticipate is going to be there in the future, and is this the best access point? That access point could become a public road someday, who knows? And we want to make sure that where they place it has been thought through, and you've kind of looked at the overall potential plan of development in an area, and that's really why that was before this body. He could have subdivided it, it's true, without taking it to before you all, but obviously they're going to have some access point for all of this development. So, and it's better to establish that access point on the very front end, I would think.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
Okay, thank you. Item number, let's see, we're through with that, so we'll move on to item number 4, discussion and public hearing on a plat of correction for the cottages at Price Farms, lots number 81R, 82R1, 83, and 84 to change the platted building envelope zoned R-1 and OSMR. Robert G. Campbell and Associates applicant.
okay, lots 81 through 84 were originally recorded as part of the original Phase 1 plat of the cottages at Price Farm, and that was back in 2009. In 2011, lots 81 and 82 were replatted to slightly adjust their building envelopes. What they're wanting to do now, as you all know, that project kind of was on hold for a while for a number of reasons, but it's been reactivated. There's a new developer there. He's actively building again in that development. They finished the clubhouse as far as the clubhouse portion of that lot. So there's a lot of good activity going on out there. What he's wanting to do with these 4 lots is basically to slightly modify what we call the building envelopes. That's the box within which the buildings must fit when they're constructed, to kind of square them off and to better fit the floor plans that they're marketing. It's really a very insignificant change. The lot sizes and the lot dimensions themselves are not changing, just the building envelopes. One thing that is required to do this is that they have to obtain at least 75% approval from the existing homeowners in the development, in the affected development. They have done that. We have a signed document where they have accomplished that. So the staff does recommend approval of this re-subdivision plat of correction, subject to obtaining the appropriate signatures.
Is there anyone with the development here that has any comments or questions? If you come up to the microphone, please.
I'm Robert Campbell. I'm representing the developer, Wilcox Development. And Mark said it correctly. We're
Got it
just
all, huh?
yeah.
Okay.
We've they finally reactivated it. There were some different units, slightly different in size and dimensions that the original developer had, and this is a little bit more standard unit that fits into what they're doing. So it changes the envelope slightly to accommodate that.
Anyone have any questions or comments?
I'll move for approval.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Item number 5, discussion and public hearing on a final plat for the North Campbell Station Road right-of-way resulting from the TDOT related improvements to North Campbell Station Road. Town of Farragut applicant.
This item, basically, I don't have any drawings of it. There were some in your packet, 7 sheets of this. Now that the construction and widening improvements to North Campbell Station Road have been completed, the town contracted out with surveying company to have the right-of-way based on the state's plans and additional right-of-way that was obtained beyond the limits of construction platted, so that we would have a drawing, essentially, that could be taken to the Register of Deeds and recorded. As part of instead of just having written deeds, it's much easier for reference purposes, much easier for the town in the future and property owners that abut the Campbell Station corridor there. And as part of this effort, surveying company reestablished monuments to define property corner intersections with the rights of ways, along this section of North Campbell Station Road. And that's a great value because, as you know, during construction, these monuments get completely, removed or graded out or whatever. So they've been reestablished as part of this platting process, and that's a real value for the town and for property owners and anybody that's potentially going to do anything along this section of North Campbell Station Road. Benny Mormon is here if you have any technical questions about this. This is the town of Farragut contracted this out to have this done. So we do recommend approval of this plat subject to obtaining the appropriate signatures.
Does anyone do you have anything over and
I would just
above
like
that?
to add to what Mark had to say there. I would tell you I work within many of the municipalities within the area, and he is exactly correct. In the process of platting your right-of-ways, you are doing your constituents, your members of your community, a huge favor by monumenting their properties and reestablishing their property boundaries along the right-of-way, because so many, I don't know of any other in this area that's doing it, and you all should be commended in your efforts for doing so.
Anybody else have any questions and comments? Do I have
Move for approval?
I'll second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 6, discussion and public hearing on the annual review and approval of the concept plan for the Villas at Anchor Parks subdivision located on the north side of Turkey Creek Road across from Anchor Park. 30.2 acres, 92 units, zoned R-1 and R-4 and R-1.
Okay, the Villas at Anchor Park, I'm sure everybody knows where that is. The concept plan, which typically comes before you on an annual basis for, developments that aren't completely finished, that was presented to you all about 1 year ago. And at that time, the preliminary plat, which are the more detailed construction drawings, were presented for Phase 1, which is kind of a bad copy, but it's obviously this section here. That's Phase 1. It goes down to Turkey Creek Road. After that approval of the preliminary plat, the public improvements were completed. They submitted a final plat back in June of this year, got that approved, and now they're building houses in Phase 1 there. That Phase 1 portion of this project involved roughly 11 acres and 35 units. This concept plan that's before you here has some slight modifications from the concept plan presented a year ago. One of the big things is due to the change in market demands, they are going away from the quadplexes and the more than 2 unit buildings, and they're going to all 2 unit buildings, just like they've done in the first phase of this particular development. So what that has meant is the overall number of lots or units has gone down slightly from 99 from the concept plan of a year ago to 92 here. They've added 1 open space lot as part of this realignment. That open space lot is here. The other change is, in order to try to get to compensate for some of the units that they were losing as a result of going to the duplex proposal, they are constructing a new section of road, and that's this Road D there. And then there's a pedestrian connection at the end of Road D to Finch Road in Audubon Hills. That's 2 of the changes, and the other change was moving the parking. It was here, and they're moving it to here. And that move actually, in staff's opinion, makes a lot of sense, because that little section of overflow parking is more centralized in that phase, It's also right across from where they're proposing a mailbox pickup, a centralized mail pickup area. So that's the significant changes from what you reviewed a year ago. You can kind of see this is a blown up version of the concept plan of the north section that was approved last year. And you can see that area. This area here is now the open space. The road, the new road comes in here. Road D, you can see where the old parking was over here, and that's been moved over here. And you can see that these units where there was a lot of quadplexes in this particular phase. And so that's, in a nutshell, that's what this change involves. It still meets the requirements. There were a few minor subject twos that were at your places. And the staff recommends approval of this concept plan subject to addressing those two minor comments that we had.
Mark, do we do can we do this all as one, or is the annual review one step and then the changes another? Or is
No, that's all part of this concept
all part of
plan.
it? Okay.
Yeah. It was just a couple of notes that I think were remnants from the previous concept plan. They're minor. And then the other comment was basically making the I go back to this, and I apologize for the scale of this a little bit. This little connection here was shown to be, this one shown to be a sidewalk, and I just requested that be a walking trail because it's connecting into the end of Finch Road, which is an asphalt condition. So those are very minor changes in the staff's opinion. So and we would recommend approval subject to those being addressed.
Well, the omission of note 26, I must admit I can't read this scale that we get in the packet, so you could explain. Is it because it's just doesn't apply anymore?
Yeah.
So it's basically housekeeping.
Yeah, it just wasn't up to date with this new concept.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the one about the arborist?
Yeah.
Okay.
I could read that one word.
I do have a question about the hammerhead.
On D, road D.
I don't really call it a cul-de-sac. I guess I was kind of under the impression that we were, over a period of time, trying to discourage the use of the hammerheads. And how have we treated those in the past? We have a maximum distance? Is that how we have it from the nearest intersection when you can use a hammerhead? I know we've talked about hammerheads for future phases that may be developed, but the way I see it here, it's not really designed to tie into a future phase. It's really designed to be a turnaround.
Yeah, it is.
Dan Johnson's already looked at that?
He's looked at it. Again, this is the concept plan. There is space to widen that if they need to as part of the preliminary plat when we get a little bit more detailed information. But he'll have to make sure that he's, okay with it when
What's the norm? What's the length? What's the maximum length that Dan likes for fire truck turnaround?
I'm not sure on a hammerhead.
On a hammerhead, okay.
Right offhand.
In my dealings,
Chris may know that.
In my dealings with Dan, it needs to be an AASHTO approved turnaround, which that is actually an AASHTO approved turnaround.
Chris, tell us who you are.
I'm sorry, Chris Sharp, Urban Engineering, 11852 Kingston Pike.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Anybody else have any questions or comments?
What's replacing the old parking area? What's there now?
I should have brought my drawing. It'll be green space.
It's just more green
Yes,
space,
ma'am.
yeah.
Thought, what we actually decided was to send it back for study.
No, I thought it was.
No,
always
it was a
more
consensus was that it
And
was to be
study.
shot down.
No, that's what one does, and the planning commission
The last
is
time
only
it was the
required to make a recommendation.
consensus that we turn it down.
And that's in the,
I think Noah just set the
Bylaws.
lot size with the size of his farm, so I'm good with that.
I'm sorry, Bob, that's not the direction I was going, but it works for me.
I want to cut a deal. Come over and do your weed eating.
Yeah.
Anybody wants to come do my weed eating?
I heard that trade for
I have a real OCD with weed eating, and you can ask my wife. I'll be out there at 10 o'clock at night with a flashlight weed eating. So. And I'm worn out. I'm getting too old and covered in poison ivy to do all the weed eating that I used to do. So.
But Gary, can we specify an acreage for something in an ordinance like
You
this?
can write it however you want to write it.
Sure.
Legally,
blank sheet of
can we
paper
do
at the
that?
It is a blank sheet of paper.
I mean, it's however you want to, make it as restrictive or unrestrictive as you want.
Bob, did you have any comments? I mean, you were the one that kind of lit the fire. Get up, baby. Bring your sword if you're going to fight for it.
Anything else for me?
Anybody have any more for Gary before he
I'll be right here.
moves on? Okay.
Don't go anywhere.
Well, members of the commission, first of all, I'm Bob Markley, 424 Heathermore Drive. I think I probably did a really poor job of introducing this. I'm excited about it because I see a compelling need for it out there. And I've experienced some of that need myself. And so when I trot in here with all my enthusiasm and drop this bomb on you, and then I didn't even show up to the next meeting, I dropped the ball there. And I just want you to know that I want to acknowledge the valuable service you all render to the town. I appreciate you. And I appreciate you giving us some consideration, giving it a second shot. In response to Mr. St. Clair's, where's the need? I have a 6-bedroom, 5-bathroom, 5,000 square foot house that I don't really need that anymore. My 4 kids are raised and grown now. I would like to have a 3,000 or 4,000 square foot house on a nice big lot with a little guest cottage out back that's not part of my residence, where when the kids want to come and stay for a weekend, bring the grandkids. When my dad was 89 years old and I had to take his keys away from him and find a place to put him in our house, it was very hard for him. It was very hard for me. He's a very independent guy. I let the air out of his tires so he couldn't drive. He went and found a neighbor and said, you won't believe somebody just let the air out of my tires. Can you help? And they got it pumped back up, and he went out and drove a half mile up I-40 the wrong way. And so at some point in time, you have to deal with this. And if I had had a dignified, elegant place where he could be close by, where we could address his needs, but not be underfoot and us getting in each other's way, that would have been wonderful. And then I think about, well, gee, someday I'm going to be in that situation. And I would like to be able to have somebody that could live close by, not in my house under my feet, where I would have independent living, but be it somebody that I hired, maybe to weed whack and cook me a meal now and then, something like that. Just a place where they could stay close by, but where I would have the dignity of separation, an independent dwelling unit. And there are so many other circumstances like that. Now, we talk about, and Betty had mentioned a little hovel out back where we can't police the people that live there. Well, I think we address that by, what do we want this to look like? And it's not going to be a little hovel. We're not talking about something you go out here and buy down on Pellissippi Parkway and have them haul up in a trailer and drop in your backyard. We're talking about something, and I think we limit the type of subdivision. And I think Alderman Honkin and Commissioner Myers' idea that we put it in a separate subdivision, we try this out, and I think the lot size requirement would be very good. We don't want this on a little postage stamp size lot. We like to have room. And I think what we're talking about here, first of all, and we need to recognize, this is not a whole big new concept. It's a very modest change to what we already have. Our accessory structure, I don't know if y'all, is this working? Our accessory structure ordinance, this is all we're doing is saying we can put a kitchen in what we already have. We're not changing the size of what you can do, where it can be located, setbacks and all that. I understand Commissioner Povlin's concerns for our backyard and the privacy we have back there. People are going to be back there in those backyards, and they have an accessory structure there. And somebody might just want this where they want a place to work on their 67 Corvette, hang out on Saturdays and watch a football game upstairs and be able to cook a meal and hang out back there with their buddies and not disrupt the household and kids and whatever's going on in there. I don't know. But I see so many positive, good things that could come of this. And if we restrict it to, first of all, new neighborhoods where people expect it, mother-in-laws die. Who's going to live in there after that? Well, I think there really is a need for this, and I don't think it's going to be in every house in that neighborhood where that zoning is. I think it's going to be a desirable thing, and when you don't have any use for that anymore, somebody's going to want to buy that. They're going to want that. It's going to be a feature that we have that puts us ahead of the curve, because this is coming at us like a freight train. We got a shifting demographic in this country. Things are changing. We need to look at, maybe put some of our personal prejudices and preferences aside and say, what's really happening out there? What do we need to do to address this and not be stuck in a what's the word I'm looking for? An obsolescent mode. So I would just ask you to be open-minded. I mean, certainly I don't have all the answers. I just think it's a good concept, and I appreciate the fact that we got some good dialogue going tonight. I think that's important. I don't think we want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, because I think there is a real need. I think we have the opportunity to create something here that is really special, that's unique, and will be part of our strategic plan to make Farragut a great place to live, work, age in place, hopefully, raise families and children, and provide an opportunity for, a lot of our young people just can't afford to live in Farragut. But, this is an opportunity for people graduating from college, can't find a job, got to move back home. Let them be out there and weed whack for us if they're going to be hanging around. But anyway, that's basically my take on it. And I think this is a pretty good initial draft. But there are some things we need to look at. I think lot size is an important thing. I think that we restrict it to a new community, and I think a real opportunity has presented itself in Mr. Varney, who has volunteered his subdivision to be a test bed for it. It backs up to Fox Run. If it was restricted to just the lots that are of a given size, if we want to say 20,000 feet, pick a number out of your hat, something that works for you, and write this thing such that house has to look like the principal structure. It's a carriage house. It's a guest cottage. It's not a little hovel in the backyard. This is something that's really an enhancement, an improvement to a neighborhood, and a valuable asset, I think. And so I respectfully request that we workshop this thing, we work it around, and see if we can't find a way to make it work and make it something that we can all really be proud of and help continue the tradition that Farragut has of being, really a top flight, forward-thinking community. Thank you. Do y'all have any questions for me?
Hey, I'm just pleased. We got one point of unity. Whoever lives in it, if they do the weed whacking, this thing could work. I mean, we have agreement on that.
We can write that in the ordinance if you need to.
This is a huge step forward from 2 meetings ago.
And cooking too. I could
Maybe the neighbors too.
I'd vote for that.
Have any more questions? I think we have someone else to make a comment.
Thank you.
I just want to add a few things, and I think it's great what Farragut's doing. I'm Matt Varney. I'm a developer with Farmstead Developments, and we have a split rail farm off of Everett Road.
Could you give us a business address?
517 Everett Road in Farragut, 37934. I mean, I was sitting here listening to this, and I'm trying to process it, and it's very merited, okay? I understand Commissioner St. Clair, the idea about a rental income, but, we have a really cool plan for our development, and I guess what really kind of, if we pull back and just look at this at the core, why this is really kind of being put forward, is if you look at the really great neighborhoods all over our country, and I'm not talking about inner city, I'm talking about places outside of New York. This is a very customary structure that you would see in Sequoia Hills. You would see it outside in Westchester in New York. And let's just think about something from a personal component. You live here, but if you went to Highlands or Cashiers, North Carolina, your idea of a getaway is a cottage. It's 800 square feet, it's quaint, it's beautiful, but it's something you would want in your backyard. What we've done is we've taken basically a train wreck of a neighborhood that a developer tried to put as much density on it as possible. And then we rethought the plan and said, what would people really want? What does Farragut stand for? And it's about quality, right? We can't take this mindset that, well, we don't do rentals here. There's no shortage of this idea that Farragut's kind of doesn't have apartments. There's only 2. And that's it, the 2 apartment complexes that are here, and there's never been any more ever since. So it's kind of sort of anti-multifamily, but under a lot of HUD regulations, you can't be like that. You can't receive monies and grants and have that mindset that you don't want apartments. You have to have.
Said that.
I know, understand that. Yeah.
Put words in anybody's mouth.
I didn't say that, but what I'm saying is
you made an accusation in that statement with a legal implication, and you're totally off base. We are doing things right now that to try and deal with overlay zones to accommodate certain higher density things like that.
Correct. And I'm not. I didn't make accusation. I didn't make accusation,
that's
though.
certainly the way I heard it.
I didn't point anyone out. What I'm saying is, from a generality, is that communities as a fabric have to be able to accommodate all, not just some. And what we're trying to do, I didn't say anything. I didn't single anything out. What I'm saying is that we are very much a very nice community. It's very upscale. It's very focused on design, quality, landscaping, and that's good. What we're trying to do is take something that was built around from its initial concept, all about as much density, and scale it back and rethink the model. We have 32 home sites in our neighborhood. We have a total of 48, okay, and we'll have a farm barn. So actually, technically, we have 50. We have Cherry Lindsay's property, which is incorporated into the site plan at a full acre. We have 48 properties that we can sell, and we have a 50th property, which is actually our farm barn, which sits on almost 2.5 acres, which will be a community garden. Our idea is that the 32 that exceed 20,000 square feet in size, land mass, square feet, some as far as big as 35,000 square feet, would be allowed to have this structure as an addition, an accessory dwelling. And it's exactly in keeping with that design style. And as far as how it's governed, design guidelines, codes, covenants, and restrictions, our neighborhood governs that. We can prevent it from having a rental income unit. It has to stay. But it's like Mr. Markley was saying. Look at the dynamics of this country we're in right now. We've got aging populations. I lost my father. He died at 64. Luckily, we were in a position where I could build my mom a new house. But had it not been like that, this would be something I'd be looking at. And as she gets older, she doesn't want steps. So now you're faced with this idea of a 5-6 bedroom house. And you need to have that close, but it needs to be dignified without sending them to an assisted living center. We all know that. That's family. That's what we do. And so what we're proposing and what we're really trying to work hand in hand with the town of Farragut is that we've got 32 of these lots that can do this. 16 are under 20,000. So we have a perfect test bed, a sandbox, if you will, to really put this out there and create a pilot project. And if that's all it is, and we could bless something like that, we'll show you. I mean, this will be awesome. There'll be people who will want to live here solely for this. But let me add one extra thing to this, because it's getting late. I have 7 people already, and we're working towards final plat, okay, for our neighborhood that have already put $10,000 deposits down. I got 4 houses designed. Every one of them's adding this. They are your citizens. They have 5,800 square feet in Wentworth. They got 6,200 square feet in Saddle Ridge. They've got a house in Sugarwood. They've got a house in Andover, and they say, I haven't been in my basement in 5 months. I've raised 4 children. The last one's in college. They're gone. What I want is 3,200 square feet and a place to watch football with my grandkids. They want that next to their pool. That's who's buying this, and they're asking for it. So to just shut it down and say, we don't do that, it's not a... we're not going to go down to Lowe's or Home Depot and get a garden shed for $1,900 and put an air conditioning unit. It's going to be site built. It'll have a foundation. It will be built by the same general contractor, custom builder, that would build a boat dock on a waterfront home worth $2 million. And it will match with shakes, hardy siding. Everything will match, even the windows down. But what it's doing is it's taking a 6,000 square foot monster that's 3 stories tall, and maybe 2,800 square feet of that space is being used, and rethinking that maybe they live on 3,000, but they have an 800 square foot ancillary structure that just services as a place where they get together, and they got the Corvette, or they have a 100-inch TV and they want to do it tastefully in a way where they can have 20 of their friends over and watch football and have a barbecue by their pool. That's all we're asking for. So that's...
Anybody have any questions or comments? So do I have a motion on, and how do we need to proceed on this, Mark?
I certainly don't think we can approve what's written here tonight.
Right.
'Cause this is basically nothing.
I recommend if you want to continue, we can just keep workshopping it and see where we go with it.
You need some guidance from us. If there are some
Well-
things in here that are real issues.
Yeah,
I mean, is
there
there
are lots of
anything that
changes.
is there any common
Maybe-
ground, I guess is what I'm asking for.
Mark's not going to be here at the next meeting, so I'll be sitting there. So maybe between now and then, if you want to think about some components you'd like to see built in, we can throw that stuff on the table. I mean, we're not in a big hurry on it. If we want to do it, let's do it right.
Can we individually submit
Sure.
ideas to you and?
Absolutely.
And,
Well,
okay.
one big question is how to generally to approach it. just so we can get to a point where we could vote on something. I know there's not probably gonna be 100% support, or I don't know, but do we need a new zoning district, like Ron was
Yeah,
maybe
that's a good,
talking
that's a
about?
good point.
Do we need an overlay and adjust it, tweak it a little bit? Do we need, that kind of more very broad question, I think would help us a lot on how to, again, as I said earlier, I think this really will apply to new developments like perhaps Split Rail or others that are developed maybe in the southwest part of the town.
I would suggest that if we're going to continue to polish this, that we polish it as a new zone. I think that's kind of the
Not an
general
overlay.
consensus.
Right.
Why not look at overlay? Why not? Bel Air has all the lots are at least an acre.
How about if we do
I don't-
this? If you can give me and Mark and I the components, the elements you want to see in this ordinance, whatever, however it turns out, we can come up with some different alternatives, either overlay, principal permitted use. We can look at it different ways and offer those to you, and then we can just talk about that. But I think if we can if this body can agree upon some elements to build into it, using this as a base, then we can decide how we want to implement it.
Like one, for example, nothing less than 20,000 square feet would qualify.
That's too small.
Well, I know, I'm just throwing that out as a concrete example of what we would be looking for
Right.
as far as
Come up with
input.
another
I'm not saying
number.
20,000 is the
confusing.
right number, I'm just saying that's the kind of concrete input I think would be helpful for us.
Are there
to get
any-
it to a point where we could actually vote on it, I guess.
I guess what I'm missing, are there any pitfalls with an overlay district that maybe I don't understand? That
It overrides the zoning that's there.
well, but only the language I think the only language that would be in the overlay district would be for an ADU. So that would be the only exception to
It would
the
be
base
a
layer.
ADU
It
overlay.
would be a concern with the OSR for me, and unfortunately, that is.
I know, but
what
20,000 square foot
Split
lots in
Rail-
an OSR. Matt, are you OSR?
Yeah, they are OSR.
That's why we're kind of a case study, because it's really started as one thing, to rework it all required a complete refiling of all the
Right.
plating.
Well, you doubled the size of your lots.
We did, but that still stayed under R1 OSR, so we're kind of an asterisk next to
Right, you are. Yeah, you're
I'd
kind
have
of a
to
hybrid.
give that some thought. I'm not saying that is an inappropriate thing. I'm just saying that that's a little bit different. I'd have to give that a little bit of.
Well, he would be definitely the only OSR. Well, no, not necessarily. Bridgemore is.
I mean, that's the kind of development I think that I envision this perhaps being somebody choosing to do it, because it's a raw piece of property basically. It's a blank sheet of paper. I see that happening much more so than somebody with a 30,000 square foot lot in an existing, more or less developed, built out subdivision.
I still think having the safeguards, the minimum of 15 acres, I think that's still important to keep somebody from a existing subdivision from just raising their
Yeah,
hand and
there
saying,
has
"Oh,
to
I
be
want an
some
ADU
kind
in
of-
my backyard."
Yeah.
I think because that 15, to me, the 15 acres would be such a huge threshold that somebody would have to cross to get 15 contiguous properties to unanimously agree to this, that would eliminate any subdivisions, irrespective of what their covenants say, from being able to apply this overlay district.
That's true.
But if those 15 acres did approve, it affects the rest of the
Yeah.
subdivision.
You're
It
exactly right.
changes
Yeah, if 15
whole-
acres in Fox Run approved, it would affect the rest of the residents
the
of
whole-
Fox Run.
yeah, it would devalue the rest of it.
And maybe that's something. Maybe that's part of it. Maybe it's not something that's either in a subdivision, either all or none. And maybe it's 15 acres, a minimum threshold of 15 acres, or 100% of a subdivision, including all their phases. You can't just say one or two phase of existing subdivisions. But Betty has a good point. It'd be kind of weird in Fox Run if for 15 acres up on the hill to have it and somebody else doesn't have it, or vice versa. I think that would be strange.
But if there's that much demand for it, they can come down here with a change and request a change.
But what we're saying is it would require 100% of the homeowners to meet
That-
that threshold.
That was my question too, about a lot of the homeowners associations have something like that written into it. Now, it's hard to enforce that in a lot of homeowners associations as well, or next to impossible.
Right.
But,
Town support.
I think you've got to look at the setbacks as well.
right.
That's something that really needs to be considered.
I do not think these ADU structures should be seen from adjoining lots.
You know, I'm not. I mean, I guess what I
That
think.
was
I
my-
think of.
I
I think of. I was been to like Seaside, Florida, which are our postage stamp lots, and probably 80 or 90% of those structures have a carriage. Typically, they're a carriage house with a guest house on top, and and it's part of a new urbanism style concept. And I think it's awesome, and you do see it, but it's tastefully done. It's
Right.
tastefully
See, now
done.
that's
Where
what I was talking about earlier. I can see that happening in a denser, to me, it works in a denser populated area, but that's not what we're talking about here for split rail.
well,
That's
Seaside's
a-
definitely not urban. I mean, there's no. It's
Well, but
it's
it gives
out in the
that
middle of
urban
nowhere.
feel. It does give that urban feel in the fact that all the houses are densely, it's that town center kind of philosophy, isn't it?
And Matt kind of has. I mean, it's starting from the ground up with your what's it called, the barn thing in the middle, the farm barn. I mean, he kind of obviously doesn't have the stores in the middle like Seaside does, but to me, it's more applicable to a new subdivision. It'd be kind of strange, just even if for some crazy reason you got 100% of the homeowners in Fox Run to agree to this, which would never happen. I think it would be a little strange in that subdivision because even though we're suburbia and Seaside, it does have a more of an urban feel or new urbanism, even though they're kind of out in the middle of nowhere. I think his property would be a great candidate for it.
I would encourage you guys to come out. I know it's getting late and stuff, but come out and drive in there. And our lots are 160 feet wide. I mean, people are wanting to design an 85 or 90-foot wide house. There's going to be like 80 feet of separation between the homes. That's an average building lot in this town. That's the separation between the houses in green space. So you're talking about a structure that's 20 by 30. It looks tiny on a lot that's 182 feet wide, like lot number 2. It's 182 by 150. It's massive in size. You stand on it and you feel small.
Well-
You go, this is one lot, you go, yeah, and you're talking about a building that would fit right here.
Well, the difference, we already actually allow these in the town of Farragut. The difference is this would make it eligible for somebody to sleep in it and do their laundry and wash their dishes in it. That's the difference. We already allow these detached structures in the town of Farragut. As
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say to address Commissioner Pavlin's concern. This is hardly a significant change in what the appearance of it will be, except that it will be guaranteed it will be a lot better looking than what our current accessory structure allows. So it's actually an improvement, and the only difference will be that, you will be able to sleep in it and wash your dishes.
Yes, but I couldn't, we have accessory structures, we're allowed to have accessory structures at Fox Run, and there's no way they would approve me having a 40 by 20 accessory structure in my backyard.
And they may not, your covenants may not allow you to
Someone
do it.
living in it.
And that's why
Well,
we're
either
kind of starting
way.
with a ground up subdivision.
Yeah, the covenants would protect you from that in the existing subdivision anyway. So, anyway, thank you.
Okay, so since we are not going to vote on this tonight and
I think we need to
So we have a
workshop this a
motion.
lot, not just one time.
Yeah.
so we still need a motion on this
Motion.
to move it off the agenda?
I would move to that effect, then. If that's the motion we need.
But wouldn't it be
Do-
on the agenda
do
for
we-
discussion?
Do we need it?
Continue workshopping it.
Isn't that kind of an indefinite postponement? I mean, maybe we want Mark to head this, and so which would be 60 days from now. Is that kind of the consensus that I'm hearing? And I agree, we're not anywhere near consensus on
Right.
this. And it still may get thrown out, and that's okay, but I think it's worth looking at. I'm not sure that the motion that's on the table is necessarily all the motion that we're talking about, because what that does, that just kind of throws it out. Do we need a motion to?
That's the trouble with what's on the table.
So
Well, I agree. What's on the
Yeah.
table, obviously, there's no
Right.
consensus.
I'm
We've
gonna,
got to- we've
I'm gonna
got to-
retract my motion, so we don't have one hanging there. Let's figure out what kind of motion we need.
Okay,
But I'd like to make a motion that we workshop this. I don't know if that motion is eligible to be made on this particular agenda item, but
Ed, how do you propose we get this off the agenda?
Well, I thought what we did, frankly, last time was appropriate under the Roberts rules and the ordinance, was basically send the item back for study or workshopping.
It was already in a workshop.
And that
Right. Okay,
We
so,
vote on
so
that.
we need an ordinance to, we need a
motion is.
motion to,
I made a motion to
Workshop.
workshop. I don't know if that's the correct
is that
motion.
enough?
I think you could probably just make the motion to postpone it indefinitely. and then we'll workshop it and bring it back when we're ready.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Robert may be turning over in his grave, but,
Well, it's fine. I mean,
public hearing on the proposed location of new utilities.
there aren't any.
And so we are going to get our suggestions to Gary, within the next month. If we have any ideas that we want to get across to Gary.
Basically have to write what we think ought to be, give it to him, and let him assimilate them all.
Right.
And if you just hate it, tell him you hate it.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
You know what I'm just saying? Well, I'm just saying, just.
If I hate what they wrote,
Well, no, I'm just saying,
do that.
be as candid as possible, because that's the information that he needs. He needs to understand where we stand.
The September the 19th, 2013 meeting is adjourned.
If it's gonna happen.